Well, the massacre, as Marina was saying, is the worst ever mass shooting in the United States. The atrocity took place in the early hours of Sunday while that club was packed. Around 320 people were inside at the time. Armed with an assault rifle and a handgun, the attacker barricaded himself inside, taking hostages. The situation lasted for 3 hours before SWAT teams moved in and then killed him. The perpetrator, again as we've heard, has been identified as Omar Mateen, a US citizen of Afghan descent. He was an ISIL sympathizer and pledged allegiance to the group in a 911 phone call just before the shooting. He'd been on the FBI's radar since 2013, it's emerged too. And Mateen's father earlier said his son had been motivated by, quote, anti-gay leanings. More on that now with Caleb Mopin in Washington, D.C. Caleb, hi. More details have come out about the killer's father too, yeah?
Yes, in the direct aftermath of the shooting, the killer's father actually posted a video on Facebook about the shooting, and he said something rather controversial. Let's take a listen.
My son, Omar Mateen, was a very nice and educated boy. He had a wife and a child and was very respectful of his family. I don't know why he did such a thing in the holy month of Ramadan. The issue of homosexuality and punishment for that is up to God alone.
Now, in response to his previous video, after there was quite a bit of outcry about what he said, he's posted yet another video, almost making a complete U-turn, changing his tone on the issue of homosexuality completely. Let's take a listen to that.
Yesterday, I was in shock. My whole family was in shock. And I didn't know what I was saying. If I said anything, I apologize for that. Anything that I made a mistake. I don't approve what he did. What he did was completely an act of terrorist. If I did catch him, I would have arrested him myself.
All right. Now, the shooter's father seems to be quite an interesting person. He does have many YouTube videos on the internet. He seemed to have almost an internet television program about politics in Afghanistan. And he did recently visit the U.S. State Department. He recently visited the U.S. State Department. It was actually in April of this year. It's not clear what the meeting that he had at the U.S. State Department was about, who he met with, what exactly was discussed. But many questions are arising as we see the family connections of this shooter in the aftermath of the horrendous shooting in Orlando.
Yeah, and there's a lot more layer to it as well. Caleb, for now, in Washington, thank you. As police and the FBI piece together the background of the Orlando shooter, it's emerged that he made trips to Saudi Arabia around the United Arab Emirates between 2011 and 12. The Saudi Interior Minister says he went there for religious purposes. Our correspondent William Whiteman's in the studio to try and pick this apart a bit more. More details coming out about connections, should connections have been made here. Let's talk about the Saudi trip. What's that about?
Well, so what we know is that after the divorce officially went through with his former wife, he went to Saudi Arabia and went there for a visit. And then on return, that's when he started being intercepted by the FBI. But one thing is you have to take into consideration is that it is reported that he was, or suspected that he was radicalized whilst in Saudi Arabia. Another thing we have to look at too is the couple, the American couple who carried out the San Bernardino attack in December of 2015. They had also gone to Saudi Arabia and were radicalized there and came back as well. So it would appear as if there is some form of pattern emerging there.
Talking of connections, there was a lot of praise today for the actual physical people that were there in the club and the bystanders that helped. But there was also praise for the SWAT team that went in, took this guy out. They waited for 3 hours. As Marina was saying, questions asked, why do they wait 3 hours? Well, we're hearing more and more that was the prudent thing to do, considering this guy could have had a bomb in there. It was a packed club. But not so much praise today, as we were saying, for the FBI. The shooter had been on their list. He also had gun licenses. How come these connections weren't made? How can you get gun licenses legally and yet still be on an FBI watch list and not be watched extremely closely, or not closely enough to prevent what happened here?
Well, this is something which has been raised in the media and in social media all throughout the day today in the wake of this horrific incident. People are really, really adamant to know why it was that someone who was on the FBI's radar managed to slip through the cracks. And not only that, but was able to go on to buy an assault weapon and a pistol and then use it to kill some 49 people in a club. I mean, so from what we know is that he was working for a private security firm, and whilst working there, he received advanced weapons training. So obviously, he would have doubtlessly used this, relied on this when he was engaging in his attack on the club. As well as this, we know he had 2 firearms licenses. One of them was the security license which he had, which obviously came with the training, and then the other one was his state civilian firearm license.
So the guns he used, basically, he was carrying legally. So I go back to the connections again. How did he have these licenses if he was on the FBI or security watch list?
This is what people are asking. So this is someone who is on the FBI's radar, and someone who has been able to buy an AR-15 high-power assault rifle and has used it to kill the largest number of people in a mass shooting in American history. So people are very, very upset and perplexed by this. As well as this, it's also reported that a month before he carried out the attack, he actually also tried to buy body armour as well. This is someone on the FBI radar, trying to buy body armour. He's able to buy an AR-15. This is truly shocking stuff. But as well as this, it appears this isn't the first time someone has slipped through the cracks. We can have a look at some other cases now.
The FBI first became aware of Mateen in 2013 when he made inflammatory comments to co-workers alleging possible terrorist ties. The FBI thoroughly investigated the matter, including interviews of witnesses, physical surveillance, and records checks. In the course of the investigation, Mateen was interviewed twice. Ultimately, we were unable to verify the substance of his comments, and the investigation was closed. In 2014, Mateen again came to the attention of the FBI because of possible ties to Monar Abu Salah, an American suicide bomber. The FBI conducted an investigation, including an interview with Mateen. We determined that contact was minimal and did not constitute a substantive relationship or a threat at that time.
And, well, there we heard the FBI addressing the issue. They're clearly saying and discussing about the fact that that he had been on their list, they've been monitoring him. But as we were saying before, this is as we're hearing about the San Bernardino case, there have been multiple couples where, occasions where people have been on the list and have somehow managed to slip through the list. We can have a look at some of the other cases that we have, which we've found now as well.